Hi students, today our topic is fuels part 3, lecture by T. Balakrishna, chemistry lecture GPT kothagudem. So our topic is calculate the oxygen required for the combustion of methane. Calculate the oxygen required for the combustion of methane. So methane, the methane molecular formula CH4, methane molecular formula CH4. We already learned the definition of combustion in previous part. The definition of the combustion is burning of substance in excess of oxygen. Burning of substance in excess of oxygen is called combustion. So here methane is ready to participation on combustion. Methane is ready to combustion means here methane is react with oxygen. It produces products and it produces more amount of heat. Okay. Here question is how much amount of oxygen is required to combustion of methane. Okay. Right, that is our question. So as per the equation, when we write the chemical equation, CH4 plus 2O2 giving rise to CO2 plus H2O. As per the equation, we get one information, that is 1 mole of methane. Here 1 mole of methane is requires to 2 moles of oxygen. Is it clear? When you are observe the equation, here CH4 prefix is 1, O2 prefix is 2. Here that means 1 mole of methane requires 2 moles of oxygen. That is very, very important for the calculation of oxygen required for the combustion of methane. So you remember 1 mole of methane is requires 2 moles of oxygen. 1 mole of methane requires 2 moles of oxygen. Or if it is represented in grams, here we are represented in moles. When it is represented in grams, CH4 molecular weight is 16. How to find out the molecular weight? CH4 contain one carbon, C plus 4H plus, 4 hydrogens. What is the carbon weight? 12. Hydrogen weight 1. So 12 plus 4 into 1, 4. 4 plus 12, 6. So that means 1 mole means 16 grams. Here we are converting the moles into grams. So here 1 mole nothing but 16 grams. So 16 grams of methane requires how many grams of oxygen? So first you find out the molecular weight of oxygen. So this oxygen molecule have 2 oxygen atoms. We know the atomic weight of oxygen is 16. So 16 plus 16, it have 2 oxygen. So 16 plus 16. So 32 is the gram molecular weight of oxygen. But here 2 moles are participating in the chemical reaction. So that means you multiply with 2. So it is 1 mole, it is in a 2. It is in a 2 moles. Okay. So 2 into 32. 32 is the molecular weight of oxygen. So here 2 moles of oxygen is participating in the reaction. So you multiply with 2. 2 into 32, 64 grams. Okay. So I repeat, 16 grams of methane requires 64 grams of oxygen. Okay. So when you are calculate the solve the problem in grams, you use this line. If you are solve the problem in moles, use the first line. Okay. If you are solve the problem in liters, volumes, 1 mole is equal 22.4 liters. 1 mole is equal 22.4 liters, irrespective of molecule. 1 mole is equal 22.4 liters. Okay. So here 2 moles of oxygen is required. We already learned 1 mole nothing but 22.4. Here oxygen requires how many number of moles? 2 moles. So 2 into 22.4. So 2 into 22.4 is equal 44.8. Is it clear? Okay, right? So if you remember, 1 mole is equal to 22.4 liters irrespective of molecules. Okay, right? If you want to solve the calculate the oxygen required for the condensation of methane, you remember these 3 lines, very important. If you remember these 3 lines, you automatically solve the problems. Okay, right? Are you remember it? Okay, right. Next, into the next slide. Take one example problem to solve the to practice the above concept. Now the problem: calculate mass and volume of oxygen. Calculate value of oxygen, mass and volume of oxygen required for the condensation of 20 grams of methane. 20 grams of methane. Okay. So if you want to solve the problem, first you write the chemical equation. What is the chemical equation? What is the chemical equation? CH4 plus 2O2 giving rise to CO2 plus H2O. Okay. So it is displayed on the your monitor. Okay. CH4 plus 2O2 giving rise to CO2 plus H2O. Okay. So here what he asked, calculate the mass. Mass means it is dependent in grams. Calculate the value is dependent in liters. And we solve the problem in grams and liters. So you select the second one and the third one. Okay. First we solve the first problem that is so in grams. So you write one sentence, that is 16 grams. So what is the second line? 16 grams methane. 16 grams methane requires how many grams of oxygen? 16 grams of methane requires how many grams of oxygen? From the second, 16 grams of methane requires 2 into 32, 64 grams of oxygen. 64 grams of oxygen. Okay. So right, as per equation, 1 mole of methane is equal to 16 grams. 1 mole of methane is equal to 16 grams. 2 moles of oxygen is equal to 32 into 2, 64. What is the weight of oxygen? 32. Here 2 moles. 2 into 32, 64. So it is in moles. It is converted into grams because they asked the question in grams. So moles is converted into grams. 16 grams required, 64 grams. So question is how much amount of oxygen required for 20 grams? Simple. 16 is equal 64 grams. 20 is equal how much grams? And a simple calculation. 16 grams methane needs 64 grams of oxygen. Basically, according to the equation, 60 grams of methane required 64 grams of oxygen. Question is 20 grams. For example, we have 16 rupees, we will get 64 chocolates. Okay. So if you have 20 rupees, how many number of chocolates you get? More number of chocolates or less number of chocolates? More number of chocolates. How much amount? We calculate. How to calculate? So 20 grams of methane requires 20 into 64 by 16. 20 into 64 by 16. So 16 grams requires 64 grams. 20 grams require how much? We should cross multiply. So 20 into 64 by, it is an x. Okay. 60 is x. 20 into 64 by 16. That is just you should cross multiply method. Okay. So the answer is 80 grams of oxygen. It is more than 64. 16, 64. So 28 is 80 grams. Is it clear? Right. You note down the problem. I think you understood the problem, just cross multiplication method, but here we convert the moles into grams, and if you want to find out the value, that moles are converted into value means liters. So next we complete the half of the problem only. We find out the only mass of the oxygen. We find out the value. Same principle. You write the equation. What is the equation? CH4 plus 2 O2 giving rise to CO2 plus H2O. If you want to solve the methane problem, you should write this equation anyway, in any problem, in all problems, right? Next, as per equation, we require 1 mole of methane, nothing but 16 grams, because 12 plus 4, 16. 2 moles of oxygen required for oxygen weight in molecule weight is 32. Here 2 moles into 2 into 64. Okay, right? Or moles. Moles are converted into liters. Here is volume. Our aim is to find out the value. So, 2 moles is equal. 1 mole is equal 22.4 liters. So, here oxygen moles is 2 moles. 2 into 22.4, 44.8 liters. So, our aim is 16 grams of methane needs 44.8. 16 grams of methane, 44.8 liters. So our aim is 20 grams of methane requires how many number of? So here 16 grams of methane requires 44.8, 2 moles liters. So our question is 20 grams of methane. Cross multiply 20 into 44.8 by 16. 20 into 44.8 by 16. We will get answer. Okay, is it clear? This is a methane problem. Next our target is calculate the oxygen required for the combustion or condensation of ethane. The molecular formula of methane is CH4. Ethane molecular formula C2H6. C2H6. Right? Come to the equation. What is the molecular formula of ethane? C2H6. C2H6. It reacts with oxygen. It produces CO2 and water molecule. But when you are balance the chemical equation, 2 moles of ethane react with 7 moles of oxygen. It produces 4 moles of carbon dioxide and 6 moles of H2. So we remember these two only, not remember this part is useful to calculate the problem. Okay, right? So what you remember as per equation? This equation gives the information about which information? 2 moles of methane requires 7 moles of oxygen. That is an important point to solve the problems. Okay, 2 moles of ethane requires 7 moles of oxygen. 2 moles of ethane requires 7 moles of oxygen. So it is in the form of moles. It is converted into grams. What is the molecular weight of ethane? C2H6. It means it contains 2 carbons. And 6 hydrogen. What is the carbon weight? It contains 2 carbons and 6 hydrogen. Okay. What is the carbon weight? 12. Hydrogen weight 1. 2 into 12, 24 plus 6. That means 30. Okay. So 1 mole is converted into, this moles is converted into grams. 1 mole is equal 30. But here 2 moles. 2 moles means into 2. 60 grams. Okay. That is 2 into 30 grams. So weight is 30. Here 2 moles. 2 into 30. So 30 grams of ethane required. How many number of oxygen? So it have oxygen. Oxygen have 2 oxygen atoms. Oxygen plus oxygen. Oxygen weight 16 plus 16, 32. 1 mole is equal 32. But here 7 moles. 7 into 32. Okay. 224 grams. So if you want to represent it in grams, 60 grams of ethane requires 224 grams of oxygen. Basically, write the point. Very important point to calculate the problem. 60 grams. If you solve the problem in grams, you remember 60 grams of ethane requires 224 grams of oxygen. Okay. So we already learned in previous problem, methane problem. It is also represented in liters. Okay, not only moles and grams, it is also represented in liters. How to convert the liters? I already told you. 1 mole is equal 22.4 liters, irrespective of molecules. 1 mole is equal 22.4 liters value. So here, how many number of moles of ethane is ready to participate in chemical reaction? 2 moles. So what is the volume of ethane in this equation? What is the volume of ethane? 2 into 22.4. 60 is in grams. We are discussing about the liters. So 1 mole is equal 22.4. Here 2 moles are participated. 2 into 20.4 is equal 44.8. So 44.8 ethane requires how much amount of oxygen? So it is also 1 mole. 1 mole is equal 22.4. But here how many number of moles are participated? 7. 7 into 22.4, that is a 156.8. 156.8 liters. So it gives 44.8 liters of ethane requires 156.8 liters of oxygen. Okay. So if you remember these 3 lines, you can easily solve the problems. Okay. Right. Next we are entering into the now. Take a simple problem. Write note on the problem. Calculate a mass and volume of oxygen. Calculate mass and volume of oxygen required for the combustion of 15 grams of ethane. 15 grams of ethane. Okay. Before solve the problem, you write the chemical equation. What is the chemical equation? 2C2H6 to C2H6 plus 7O2 giving rise to 4CO2 plus 6H2. It is not useful. You remember this part only. If you get this part, automatically solve the problem. Okay, 4CO2 plus automatically solve the problem. Okay, 2C2H6 plus 7O2 giving rise to 4CO2 plus 6H2. Okay. Right, as per the equation, what we get? So our aim is to find out the mass. So if you want to find out the mass, first you find out the mole. The mole is converted into grams. First you write the moles. How many moles? 2 moles of ethane is participated. 2 moles of ethane is participated. 1 mole nothing but what? Weight of the ethane. Weight of the ethane is 30. 2 moles is equal to 2 into 30, 60 grams. That is, so here moles is converted into grams. So because our problem in grams. So right, next on to the oxygen. Oxygen, how many moles? 7 moles. What is the oxygen weight? 32. 7 into 32. So 24 grams. Okay. So 60 grams of oxygen. 60 grams of oxygen requires 224 grams of 60 grams of oxygen required 224 grams of 60 grams of ethane requires 224 grams of oxygen. What is our question? 15 grams, right? Write it. 60 is equal 60 giving rise to 224. 15 giving rise to how many? 15, 1, 5. Cross multiplication method. 224 into 15 by 60. Okay. 15 into 220 by 60. Next, the calculator take care of it. Okay. You get the answer. Okay. Is it clear? Right. Next. our here we solve the half of the problem only, mass. Our aim is to find out the volume also. How to calculate the volume of first equation, then same equation, but here as per equation, here 2 moles, 1 mole in the, if you want to depend in liter, 1 mole is equal, 1 mole is equal, if it is dependent in volumes, liters, 1 mole is equal 22.4 liters. Here 2 moles, so 2 into 22.4,
44.8.
2 into 22.4, 44.8. Here not get the information. Okay, 2 into 22.4, write it. 2 into 22.4 is equal 44.8 liters of ethane. Ethane requires how many number of how many liters of oxygen? So your oxygen is 7. What is the volume? 22.4. 7 into 22.4, that is 22.4 is equal 156.8. 156.8. Okay, right? Okay, right. So that it gives information about 44.8 requires 156. Is it clear? 44.8 moles of ethane requires 156.8 liters of oxygen. Our aim is 15 grams. Okay, our aim is 15. So it is not right here. It is converted into grams, not liters. So what is how many grams? 2 into the 60 grams. It is right in 60 grams. 60 grams. Okay, okay, right? So 60 is equal 44.8. So okay, right? Right. It is converted into formula. Allowed in the 15 is equal. 60 is equal to 156.8. Okay.
44 into
15. 15 grams. 15 grams. 15 grams. 16 grams of ethane requires 156 liters of oxygen. Okay. So question is 15 grams of ethane requires how many liters of? So when you are apply method, 15 into 156.8 by 60. Okay, you will get the answer, that is 39.2 liters of oxygen. Okay. So some problems for practice. Try to solve the problems. First you note down the problem. The first problem is calculate a mass and volume of oxygen. Calculate mass and volume of oxygen required for the combustion of 10 grams of methane. 10 grams of methane. Okay. So next note on the problem. It is calculate a mass and volume of oxygen required for the combustion of 14 grams of ethane, C2H6. So I repeat, if you want to solve this problem, you remember some simple tricks in calculation of methane. In calculation of methane, 1 mole of methane requires 2 moles of oxygen. 16 grams of methane requires 64 grams of oxygen. 22.4 liters of methane requires 44.8 liters of oxygen. If you want to calculate the ethane problems, you remember 2 moles of ethane requires 7 moles of oxygen. It is converted into grams. 60 grams of ethane requires 22.4 grams of oxygen. So if you want to solve the problem in liters, if you want to find out the volume, 44.8 grams of ethane required 156.8 grams of 156.8 liters of oxygen. So you remember these 6 lines, you can solve any problem in fuels problem to require how much amount of oxygen for the methane and ethane. Okay. Note down the problems. Thank you students. Thank you very much.